Let's do this. You all know what time it is. You know what time it is. Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and this is the time I dedicate and carve out to ensure that we interview a real-life trader, get to hear their story, learn who they are, ask good questions, figure out what they're doing with their life, what they want to do with their life, their specialties, their skills, their assets, their history, their past, their present, their future, learn how they trade, all that good stuff. So today we have a special guest, one of my birthday brothers, Mr. Robert Falco, aka Dr. Falconium. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and see if I can unmute his microphone. I'm going to scroll down. Where is he at? Oh, he's under Doctor. All right. Dr. Falconium. I'm going to allow you to talk, promote you to panelist, and I'm going to unmute you. So, Falco, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Beautiful. Oh, my gosh. You sound like a mix between Cher and Angels.
Oh, well, I guess that's a good thing, right?
Of course, man. How are you, buddy?
Awesome. I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yes. Yeah, dude. I've been looking forward to this. I really have. I want to give everyone a quick introduction. So Robert Falco and I met about a year ago, and he pretty much reached out to me via email, kind of gave me his background, which we'll ask you about in just a minute. And we talked on the phone for a good hour. And I genuinely, truly liked his story. I liked, he had some struggles he was going through, but he was at a really good place in life as far as trading. And he took a big leap of faith. And I'm really excited to see where you are now, man. So tell everyone a little bit about yourself. Feel free to go on nice 15-minute rampage if you need to, because you got a big story to tell.
15-minute rampage, huh? Well, yeah. So as Jeremy mentioned, we both have the birthday of May 2nd. Unfortunately, Jeremy's a little bit younger than me, so I'm 35, and that was kind of a painful birthday for me because now every day I'm closer to 40 than I am to 30, so like a little mini midlife crisis. But I also feel like I probably have to explain the Dr. Falconium thing, because sometimes I'll get a message like, "Oh, what are you a doctor in?" or And really what that was I created a trading business to trade under. I was trying to come up with names, and I wanted something. I know James Gerard was making fun of people that just say something blank capital, but I'm one of those guys. So it was Falconium Capital, so kind of like a play on, that rare earth metal from like the Marvel movie, Vibranium, but with my last name, Falconium Capital. So I told that to Jeremy. And then he started calling me Dr. Falconium, so I just changed the name every time and join Zoom.
I feel like everyone should have a nickname, it just makes sense.
Yeah, we're starting a trend.
Yeah. So you're not a medical doctor is what you're saying?
No, I am not a medical doctor. Don't DM me with for medical advice.
So what is your background in?
So I started in banking, actually. I started with a bank, a large bank. It rhymes with Fells Wargo. Back when I was 19, I started as a teller, and it was something that I got really well at, and I worked my way up. It made sense to me, numbers, finance. I liked working with customers, about numbers and money and all that good stuff. So I worked my way up actually pretty quickly. I was born and raised in California. That's where I started with the bank. And then I became a branch manager, and I had an opportunity to go to Arizona and manage the largest branch in Arizona. So
nice.
I took that opportunity. It was literally like right after I had gotten married at the time. Came back from the honeymoon, packed up like 2 days later, and was in the truck moving to Arizona. And I was in Arizona for a while. I managed one of the largest branches down there. I became a district manager of about, first I think it was 10 branches, then it was 15, and I was in the straight hood. I mean, every single branch I had bandit barriers, so like the bulletproof glass. My first 2 weeks, guys ran in with guns and robbed one of the branches. And yeah, it was, I've got all kinds of crazy stories from that area, but it was fantastic. One of the things that was really cool is just the diversity, there in Phoenix. I had a couple branches that, you just couldn't even work at unless you spoke Spanish, as well as English, obviously. So that was really cool. I was there for a while. And then I happened to, my boss's boss had came to do like store visits with me to go around to the different branches. And she came and picked me up like in her car, which was kind of weird that she didn't bring my boss with me, and said, hey, do you think you're ready to be an area president, which is like the next level up? And I said, yeah, sure. Like where, here or, someone leaving, what's going on? She said, no, in Idaho. I said, Idaho, what the heck is up there? And so Idaho was split into two areas. There was southern Idaho and northern Idaho. I said, if it's southern, great, but I don't want to be pounding through, a bunch of snow just to get out of my house in northern Idaho. So I moved up to southern Idaho. I got the job. I'm been in Idaho for a little over 4 years. As you all can imagine, there was a lot of different stuff that went on at Wells, and they did some restructuring. There was about 160 across the whole company of like my job and then the region president. And so I reported directly to the region president here in Idaho and managed the districts in southern Idaho. And then he managed the districts directly in northern Idaho because it was just too small. So across the country, they combined our jobs. So we had to go heads up and battle each other there and re-interview for our roles, actually. And I ended up, I thought he was going to retire because he was, close to that age, but he's daddy Warbucks for his daughters at a law school. So he decided to stay. And I was one of the youngest area presidents in the entire company. Mm-hmm. And so I got laid off. I got a nice severance package, which was really fantastic because it allowed me to pretty much start trading full time and still get paid, still have benefits, which was fantastic. So that gave me a good, 10, 11 months to really dive into this full time and still be getting, my prior salary. But that was definitely, it was tough for me because that was like my whole identity, was my job. And so when I talked to Jeremy, the first thing, and sorry if I get emotional here, but the first thing out of Jeremy's mouth was, congratulations, like this is your first step, towards freedom. And that was just awesome. Like I can't thank Jeremy enough for that, that encouragement and that confidence. And again, it was like the first time that I had ever talked to him on the phone. And, again, I reached out over email and I figured, we'll have an email conversation. And he's like, here's my cell phone number, call me. And that was crazy to me that, the CEO of a trading company would just be like, hey, here's my phone number, call me. I wouldn't give my phone number to some random dude who emailed me, that's for sure. So that was just fantastic. And then I worked with Jeremy on some coaching and some trading plans. And the very first month that I had a written trading plan, because I know we hear it a lot in the trading room, like, oh, follow your plan and this and that. And I didn't know what the heck a trading plan was. And the very first month I had a trading plan, that was my first positive month, trading. Obviously I started with a smaller R and then, kind of worked my way up. But that was just phenomenal. And, now I started my own business that I'm trading under. And obviously the severance package has expired at this point. So I'm trading, full time for a living. I'm going to do some real estate stuff on the side because I like real estate personally with rentals and investment properties and things like that, and or to help friends and family. But obviously trading, I've been very passionate about, spent a lot of time and energy doing, and it's something that I'm passionate with and I really enjoy. So there's no way that I will go back to a corporation where like something like that can control, my destiny again.
That's right, baby.
There's no like option B. It's like there's only option A. I'm going to succeed at this. Unless I go broke and lose all my money. And I know, talking to Jeremy, once you learn how to mitigate risk, like you're not going to lose all your money. Like at a certain point, you would just say, okay, this really isn't for me if I'm down to my last R or something like that.
Yeah. Exactly. Dude, first of all, man, I appreciate the kind words, dude. I'm glad to hear you emotional, man. I love people that are real. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that story and bringing me up in that. I had so that everyone knows, I don't script any of these interviews. I just ask people, I just chat with them. But thanks, man. It means a lot. Falco is coming down for the meetup in September. And then me and him are going camping the week after that. I'm going to be hanging out at his house for a few days. He's a genuine dude. I love you, man. I think you're a great person. I can't wait to meet you in the flesh.
Yeah, thank you.
So it's a double-edged sword for me.
I'm so is it camping or is it more backpacking? I know you're still waiting to find out.
It's gonna be more camping slash.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right.
Backpack. All right. It'll be a little bit more camping. So here's a question, man. And again, if you need to pause and tell other people your thoughts on this. This is one of the things that I find most interesting about your stories. You had a really, huge, really nice job that I think a lot of people would strive for in the corporate world, and you still kind of got kicked to the curb, and you're like, all right, that was it. As hard as you worked, they still didn't really care about you. And when you were switching, tell people a little bit about that identity crisis, because the ironic thing is, to not only become a professional trader, but to become a successful person outside of working for another company, you do have to develop your own identity and your thoughts and your beliefs and your goals. Tell people about your thought process on that.
Yeah. So, that was something that, obviously working a corporate job, that I was so busy, like my life was literally ran by my Outlook calendar and my administrative assistants, whether it was like knocking on my office door, like, hey, your next meeting's in 10 minutes or this and that, traveling, because Idaho's pretty spread out. So if I had to go visit like my branches in the eastern part of Idaho, that's like a week's long trip. I'm not going to drive 5 hours to go, see one branch or one district all the way out there. And so it consumed so much of my time. And again, it's kind of, you get a little bit of freedom. When there was a lot of snow or something, I could work from home. I had a laptop and a BlackBerry, and finally they switched to iPhones. But once you have that stuff, it's like, it was literally like slavery to the company, because like you're expected to always answer it. So like whether it was like finance plans that it's like, hey, here's your plan for next year. I know it's the Christmas holiday, but we need this back before New Year's. And so, even if I was back in California visiting family, I was working like on my laptop and I had stuff to do, maybe not nonstop, but there was always something that had to be done. If there was some giant issue, since I was in direct management, like other people would advise me on certain decisions, but at a certain point, like nobody else was going to put their name on something. Like it had to come to me. And, if I made a decision that was wrong, I remember one specifically, someone had opened an account for a guy in like the Dominican Republic and never identified him or anything like that. Had just like gotten a referral from a business customer, and he had deposited like $300,000. It had sat there, nobody, he never did anything with it. Well, then he wanted the money, wired back to the Dominican Republic. And the branch manager was gone that had originally opened the account. Like he didn't know anyone there. And so the money had sat there. It wasn't going to get returned or anything like that with like a check or, a wire. Like it was guaranteed funds at that point. But nobody wanted to sign off on wiring, this $300,000 to this dude that nobody knew in the Dominican Republic. Like those were decisions that I had to make. And if I was wrong and we took a $300,000 loss, that was my job. So going from like a career like that where you cannot be wrong to trading, like is a whole nother thing. Cause like you're going to be wrong in trading. That's just how it is. But back to the, identity thing, like it consumed so much of my time, and I was making, a lot of decisions, and I think it kind of, almost like boosted my ego, so to speak, where it's like, hey, like I'm so important because I do all this stuff. I had like 500 people that reported to me. My payroll was $15 million. I managed over $1 billion in deposits and $800 million in loans. And so going from that to like, hey, you're not doing this anymore. That's kind of it was kind of a hit from that standpoint, like, because that was so much of my time and so much of what I did that I kind of had to rediscover myself. And so the cool thing is some of the things that I really liked doing before, I kind of get to like learn and do all over again just because I stopped doing them because work was consuming so much of my day.
Yeah. Oh, you still there? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay. So, it just consumed like so much of my time. Like that's who I was. And, one of the articles I forgot to mention this, you had written a blog post that you sent me when I shared some of this with you about, what was the title of it? It's like who you are or what you do or something like that. It's like who you are, what you do or something. Yeah. And that really hits home. So, because so many times when you meet someone, what's the first question they ask you? Oh, what do you do?
Yep.
And especially like when you're like, oh, well, I trade the stock market, or God forbid you say day trade. And then they think you're some degenerate gambler. Like, oh, well, you're just gambling money, in the roulette of the stock market. Yeah. And we know it's not really gambling. I mean, it can be if you treat it that way, but if you do it properly, that it's not.
Right. Right. No, I get that question so much, man. I still kind of scratch my head. I'm like, what do I say? I still don't even know sometimes.
Yeah.
I usually just go, I educate adults, and they go, oh, about what? I feel like that's an easier transition normally, but that's amazing, man. So how long have you been working at this? Well, actually 2 parts. How long have you been working at this? But secondly, I know you were always involved in finance, but when did the stock market obsession start?
So, I mean, I've always contributed to my 401k and wanted to learn about what I was investing in. Like originally I wanted to go into mortgage. Like I wanted to be a mortgage guy. Cause when I first started as a banker, like just opening accounts and doing some loans and things like that, this was in, was it 2002 or 2003 when I first became a banker rather than a teller? And so we had a husband and wife that were mortgage reps. One did A paper and one did B and C paper in mortgage, if you know what that means. And I just remember they were just making tons and tons of money. And, obviously 2002, 3, 4, 5, 6, that was the height of the market. So I was like, oh, I want to be in mortgage. Like, this is just so easy. I mean, you work at McDonald's and we're going to do stated income and you're going to buy a $400,000 home. And, the mortgage rep got paid pretty well. And so I thought that was great. Well, then obviously the bubble burst and B and C paper pretty much went by the wayside. And I looked into becoming like a financial advisor. So there were some regulations at the time that changed. I think it was like Regulation X or something like that. And so the bank, I was managing a branch. They sent me to go get my Series 7. So I had to get it while I was working, but they had a whole program. And so I went halfway through and I had just got through options, which is was really hard for me to understand. Cause it's like, you can be long puts, you could be short puts, you could be long calls, you could be short calls. It was just very difficult for me to initially get. And I just got through that and passed the, whatever the midterm thing was.
Right.
And then they pulled the plug on it. And so I asked my boss at the time if I could keep the materials, because obviously they had already paid for it. And he said, yeah. So I learned a little bit about it back then. And I started, I think I had told you I started doing credit spreads initially. And I did a few credit spreads and they were successful. And then I did one and didn't know what I was doing and lost everything I had made, on the credit spreads. I mean, it wasn't a ton, but, then through my 401k, and for a while I was also getting, actual stock options and restricted shares, from the bank at the time. And so that kind of got me into it. And then, I just liked it. So I had a little side account with some play money that I traded with. And then right around when everything started going on, I had watched her videos for a while, and then I had got busy, doing other stuff. And then I came back to it and I'm like, hey, I'm going to try out this trading stuff. I have a little bit of downtime here and there. I could do it on my phone, is what I thought initially. So, yeah. And then once I knew I was going to get laid off, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to try this. I always wanted to own my own business. And one of the things that was really frustrating, customers and employees, and we call them team members, like I always had to manage those issues. And one of the things that is really cool about the market is you don't have customers and you don't have employees. It's just you and the candlesticks, so to speak. So that's what I really enjoy about it. And you can do it from anywhere. So I don't feel like I'm like locked into, a specific area in the country and or like Boise or anything like that.
Yeah. Gotcha. Which is huge. I mean, that's the massive thing. So do you plan on moving anytime soon, or are you just going to stay in Boise for a while?
I don't know if I necessarily plan on moving. I mean, I like Boise. Sometimes like not this last winter, but the winter before that was like really bad here. And, I guess it was the worst winter in like 30 years, but I know when I lived in Arizona, there was a lot of snowbirds, and I was like, that would be awesome to be in Idaho during the summer and then be able to go to Arizona during the winter, because the summer in Arizona is just brutal. And so I wouldn't want to go live there during that. And or, if I got the ability to just take off, like you and Ashley do for, a couple days here or a week there.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're able to trade. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, totally. So I think you're probably one of the few people that I could ask this to, just because you're a very communicative person. What's worst case scenario, man, at this point? I mean, for other people who are out there, kind of give them their thoughts where they're sitting in a job that they may or may not like. They probably don't like it. They're trading. They have some 401k money. They have an IRA money. They got some money in savings, and they're just afraid. What are they afraid of?
I think they're afraid that they can't replace that current job that they have. And or like, oh, well, if I leave this, am I going to be able to get something better and or the same? I know for me, like, and this is why looking back, I think it's like a blessing in disguise, and I'll definitely believe that in the future. I never would have left my corporate job. I was making over $200,000 a year. I never, even if it started to not get as fun and there was a lot of, issues that the bank was going through at the time. But I wouldn't have left because the money was too good.
Yeah.
And maybe some of that, like, hey, I can't leave, because of the money or the benefits. I might not be able to get something as good. And, it's a risk. I mean, it's a risk to leave that like guaranteed paycheck every Friday. I mean, that's how that was all I knew for 15 years was working, at the bank. I mean, and I've worked, basically trading time for money since I was, young. I mean, I started with a paper route when I was like 12 or 13. I umpired baseball. I worked fast food. I worked at Best Buy. I mean, all through my teens, until I ended up at the bank. And so just, willing to take that risk of, hey, like next Friday, there's not going to be a direct deposit. I mean, that, for you, that's no big deal because you've known that now for a very long time.
Yeah.
Or in talking to some other, more entrepreneurs, like they know what that feels like, and you don't really know what that feels like until you experience it. And I think stepping out of that comfort zone, and one of the things I realized, like there's always going to be like another job that you can go get. I think I had told you, like after my severance ran out, I sucked unemployment dry, but like part of it was I had to apply for jobs. So I was just applying for just junk, random stuff, like the minimum of 2 a week, so I could collect, the max amount of unemployment. So I'm like, I paid into this, so I'm going to collect it.
What kind of jobs were you applying for?
At first, I was like stuff that I thought I might be interested in.
Yeah.
And then I was just doing whatever just to satisfy like the easiest things. Like if they had their own website, I had to fill stuff out. I was like, screw this, on to the next one that I can just submit
submit the resume
on Indeed or whatever. And so anyways, there was a finance and sales manager or something like that at an RV dealership, and they were paying pretty well because like RV sales are at an all-time high and all this stuff. And I put my suit on, and I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, I almost didn't even go to the interview. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go. So I went, and then I was like, yeah, there's no, like, they wanted me to work from, open to close and 10 hours a day. And it's like, it wasn't worth it to me.
Yeah.
I mean, even for, 6 figures, I'm not going to do that anymore. And, the time is worth so much more than the money. And if you're able to add value, there are many other ways that you can have multiple sources of income, to provide that money. But I mean, that's a big leap for a lot of people. And so worst case scenario for me, like I just said, I mean, I'm not going to say, hey, there's a plan B, because that means I'm not committed to plan A.
Right.
So there is only plan A. And, if plan A completely falls apart, then, I'll go get a job and make the money back, the way I did before.
Sure. So what's the definition of falling apart then for plan A? Do you have any specific metrics or numbers, or like, this is what failure looks like?
I'm in a pretty good situation that my bills are not very high.
Yep.
I have a good amount of savings, and, again, the amount of money that I put into the trading company, to fund the LLC with. I mean, I don't want to lose it all or anything like that. And I don't think I would at this point. Like, I know how to manage risk well enough to where it's like, I'm not going to do that. So, I guess if I don't really know, because this is just not an option for me.
I love it. I love it. That's what I'm talking about, man. That's what I'm talking about.
Like, why would I spend more time defining failure than what I'm going to define success? Like, that's what I would want it to look like, right? So
bingo. And what's most so beautiful about that is a lot of people do, they do overanalyze failure, and they think way too much about it. Like, how much money do I have to lose? What happens if I lose the money? Where do I live? Things like that. But what happens is it's okay to go down the rabbit hole one time and figure out, all right, this is worst case scenario. So let me give you my worst case scenario, Falco. I thought about this like 3 years ago, right when, because I don't know if you know or a lot of other people know, but I had a few lawsuits that happened when I formed Real Life Trading. There's a lot of other companies that weren't so happy that I was giving away education for free, blah, 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 blah. And there was like this one bill that was coming up for some lawyers. I was like, man, I don't really have any money to pay this. Like, this is a lot. Like, I'd have to pull money out, so on and so forth. And so I started going down worst case scenario. And I go, okay, worst case scenario, I lose all of my money. I have no money, no income, no cash, but I have friends I can just go stay at their house and live pretty much for free for X period of time. So it's like, okay, I have a home, I have food, I have people that will care for me, and that's worst case scenario. I was like, yeah. Which is not that bad. It's not a bad scenario. You have a house, you have food, and you live somewhere nice that you like. So once I realized that, then I was like, screw it. The worst that's going to happen is I'm going to just go live somewhere else for a while until I just build my money back up. I mean, I've already done it once. I can do it again, And so that's something that I think people really need to understand is it's the quote. I love the quote so much. It's not our darkness that we're afraid of. It's our light, kind of thing is like we're not afraid of failure. We're afraid of our success. Because so many people know exactly what failure looks like, but they've never imagined what making, let's say if someone's making $3,000 a month, they've never imagined what $15,000 a month looks like. Or if they are making $15,000 a month, they've never imagined what making $100,000 a month looks like, or $1 million a month. They've put themselves in that state mentally because it's just so far a bridge from their current life. They don't know what to do. And that's the crazy part about that is none of that revolves around money. You mentioned this word probably the most of this entire conversation so far, the word time. I mean, you can have as much money as you want, but time is the essence. Time is all that matters. And if you're a multimillionaire, but you're miserable and you're sitting on your deathbed and you regret not going to Tahiti or, Fiji or Aruba or whatever, that's the stuff that you got to do right now.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, money is infinite. You can get more. You can't buy more time. And that's something that I have always been, I've always tried to give advice to people. It's like, hey, focus on time. Sometimes I give better advice to other people than I took myself. And, you cannot buy more time. And so, even if usually I stop trading at noon or sometimes even earlier now. And it's like, I have the rest of the day to do stuff. Like I'm healthier now than I was working at my corporate job. Like I'm reading more books. There's time for me to do other things. Like I'm available. I had a friend that she needed help moving. And I was able to go do that, where it's like, if I was working, I couldn't just leave on a Thursday at 1:00 to go help someone move or something like that. So it allows you that time to do the things that make you who you are.
Are you happier?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely would like to be more successful, trading. Because I don't think my mindset's perfect, but I think I've come a long way from my scarcity, abundance, kind of thing, because it is a big hit to go from, multiple six figures to nothing. And I mean, it's not like I was super rich or anything, but it's like I never had to worry or even think about what I was spending my money on, within reason. I did a pretty good job being frugal and things like that, but I have to budget a little more and things like that now that I didn't have to worry about before. So that's not as exciting, but at the end of the day, again, I'd much rather have the time to do whatever I want than to be literally being ran by Outlook. I think there's a baseline level of anxiety that a lot of people have in a 9-to-5 job, because every minute, every hour is accounted for, somewhere, especially companies that focus on efficiency and, all this stuff versus, again, the market's not doing what you want, or, you made your money for the day, you made your R or two, then it's like, hey, just go downtown and walk around. I mean, do whatever you want. And it's that doesn't exist in a 9-to-5 job. And so I'm really thankful for that now doing what I'm doing.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about your trading, man. I mean, so the good news is you've been trading actively how long?
A little over a year.
Okay. So kind of explain
a year and a month or so.
A year and a month. So explain to everyone your journey for the last 13 months.
So when I first started, again, I started with a really small R, $50, just to see if I could do it. And I was trying to trade on my phone and take my laptop to work while I was doing other things. And I was just taking I was just throwing spaghetti at the wall. I mean, 70, 80 trades the first month or something like that.
Sure. And
the commissions, whether you win or lose, even with a $50 R, the commissions were just eating you up. And then plus it wasn't $50 or $100. This sounds bad, and I don't want it to come off bad, but it didn't mean anything to me. It wasn't enough for me to say oh, this looks like it could be a bad trade, I'm going to not take it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I really moved my R to, once I at least knew how to enter orders and things like that. And I'm like, okay, I know the process of getting in and out of trades and not taking stop markets, using stop limits. And I did all that stupid stuff, clicking on the wrong, I sold when I wanted to buy and stuff like that. So when I was confident that I had those things down, moving my R to 200, or I think about $300 was where I was for the longest time on my R.
Right.
To where I was okay, now I really need to focus on taking really good trades. And so that was where I set my target of about 20 trades per month. And I think the first month I did that, I lost 6 or 7 R. And then when I built my trading plan with you, I had some really good rules that I ended up being positive that month.
So share some of those rules with people. What's your trading plan look like, if you don't mind?
So within the first 5 minutes, if I take a trade on the 1 minute chart within the first 5 minutes, I only use half an R.
Okay.
Because I don't want to lose an R in the first, minute.
Yeah.
And that was happening before. Bullish retest gaps, not taking breakouts, So I took a lot of breakouts. It's like, wait for the retest. If it's a retest gap, you've got to wait for the retest. And then the thing that was the hardest for me was when you told me enter the trade, draw like your Elliott wave, set your target, and then walk away for 45 minutes. Like, oh my God, 45 minutes was just, it was so long. It was like the whole day had gone by. Like, I want to look at this, not trading on my phone. I mean, I can, if I'm out and about and I'm already, let's say I'm in a position that I'm trailing, or, you know, my stop's at break even, then it's like I'm just waiting for it to hopefully hit the target. And, you know, I go to the gym, you know, I'll check it, but I try not to like initiate trades on my phone.
Right.
I don't really have a problem with that anymore, but that's still, I guess, technically on my plan.
Sure.
Not shorting 52-week lows, breakdowns of a 52-week low on a dividend paying stock. That was one that I vividly remember like you going through my trades with me and you're like, dude, you're shorting all of these 52-week lows of these dividend paying stocks. Like, and you're shorting not like a retest, like a breakdown, then a retest. You're shorting like the breakdown. And so it never, you know, really had enough of a move. I would end up getting stopped out on the retest, let's say, if I move my stop down or something like that. So I just try and avoid those altogether. You know, if I see a good and or perfect gap and go that's like clearing pivots and there's a high wave reversal candle, I mean, like that trade on Wells, that was like a personal one for me. It's like I had to take it. It didn't matter like what the stock was or, you know, whatever. Like if I see that candle pattern and that gap, like I have to take it. So that's another rule. Like I won't lose more than 2R in a day. If I make 3R in the first 2 hours, then I shut it down. If I make 4R, which, you know, I haven't had too many of those by noon, then it's like I'll shut down, which I usually finish by then anyways. And so now like I've adjusted to where I won't move my stop for 20 minutes unless there is a very clear pivot point and or I hit a target like like if it's one of those half hour trades in the first 5 minutes, I try to be in and out of those pretty quick. But I don't want it to be based on moving my stop. I want it to be based on it hitting my target. So making sure that I set, you know, realistic targets for those trades, you know, not like I'm going to take a breakdown on the 1 minute and it's just going to run all day. Sometimes that happens, but you know, that's like the exception, you know, rather than the rule. And then like naked puts is something that I've really come to. That's like one of my bread and butters. And there's only there's only certain stocks that I'll take those on. Similar to Matt DeLong's plan, Matt was awesome. I spent like probably 4 hours with him going back and forth on Slack. So I have something similar. Obviously not the size that, you know, that Matt's doing, but I like to sell premium on, you know, big down days. Below, you know, below supports where I think that, you know, the stock's not going to go. I think Bob had talked about that. And I generally like to get 1% premium, you know, per month. But I do also like to play, you know, implied volatility crushes, which has worked out really, really well, you know, thanks to Fred for some of that coaching, you know, there and questions that he's answered for me. But like on Netflix, you know, that it didn't move the way I wanted it to on that gap down. I mean, if it would have gapped down like a little bit, like it's still, that option would have been worthless. But when that option opened, you know, at $5 and I had sold it for $1, I day traded it. I was positive on the day trade, way more than I would lose. I waited for that option to come all the way back to, I think it was $1.25 or something like that. And I said, you know what, is it really worth, because I could put the shares and hold it, but on that type of gap down, looking back, obviously, we didn't know it was going to do what it did.
Sure.
But was it really worth, you know, the risk of getting put those shares and then it going all the way to 300 or something like that, where it's like I could just resell a put further out at a lower strike later. So making sure that I'm good at mitigating my risk on there. And that was something that was really tough for me because I haven't lost on a naked put sale all year long. I mean, every single one I've taken has has been positive.
And it was a super small loss, though.
Oh yeah, it was like $20, but it was like I don't want to lose on this trade. The volatility did end up getting sucked out of it. But so those, I'm not going to sell a naked put on an up day. Like that's just not going to happen. That's not my plan. So I have to wait for a big down day. It has to be below some supports where I'd feel comfortable owning the shares. I have to have the buying power for it. So that's something me and you talked about. I like to have about 50,000. At the most, I'd probably go to like 80,000 worth of buying power out there at one given time, preferably spread over 1 to 4 months out so that I'm not going to, July 20th, it's not going to come and I'm going to get put $80,000 worth of stock.
Right.
I don't want that to happen.
Right.
And so it's been a little nerve wracking as I get like close to that number. And I've only gotten there to where I was like, okay, I'm maxed out on put sales. I think once. And then that first week of May, everything just rallied. And I remember all my put sales. I closed them all out. And now, on Friday, Shopify puts, IQ are going to expire worthless. I closed out BZUN. And so I have no naked puts out there. So it's like, hey, I'm ready to load up on naked puts. Because the most profitable trade I had was shares that I got put on Square in December and then sold, I think, end of January, early February. I probably should have held longer, but it is what it is. That was the most profitable trade I've ever had.
Right.
Was when I got put those shares on Square and then
that's the point, man. I love getting put shares because a lot of people are like, some people underestimate how much 100 shares can do for your account.
Yep.
It can be a big win. Some rapid fire questions. What broker do you use?
So I use Thinkorswim. I originally used Thinkorswim because I wanted to do credit spreads, and they were the best about like calculating what your margin needed to be and how much like you really have at risk, when you have a spread. And I like their tools and everything are really good. Their commissions are really crappy, so negotiate their commissions. I think that's part of like my banking background is like haggling on things. So it's like I've beat them up a lot over the course of the last year on commissions. And then like even when I opened my business account, they said, oh, well, you're a professional now, so we're going to charge you for your real-time data. And I think I'd reached out to you and you're like, yeah, unfortunately, we pay for it. I'm like, screw that. I'm not going to pay for that. I get it free on my personal account. Why would I pay for real-time data? So I really beat them up on that. And they ended up waiving it. So once you beat them up a bit, and it's just like any other negotiation, you come with your facts like, hey, this is how much I generate for you guys on commissions anyways. Here's how much I have with you. I've moved more money. I rolled over my 401k into an IRA with you guys. And so, work with me here. So once you get that in line, I really like Thinkorswim. Sometimes I like to day trade short a lot more than I like to day trade bullish because it moves faster and that's what I like. And sometimes they don't always have shares available like an Interactive Brokers or Lightspeed, would. But for the most part, they've been pretty good. Yeah.
Gotcha. So overall, kind of run through, have you been profitable, unprofitable, break even? What's the last few months looked like for you?
So June was really, it's July. Yeah. So June was really the only month that I lost money, and it was very small. I think it was like an R. I'd have to go back and look. Maybe it was 1.2, but it was like very insignificant. January was my best month ever, over 10R. February should have been a lot better, but I was in jury duty on the big crash. I was so ticked off, man.
Oh, brutal.
I got out of the jury box, looked at my phone. I'm like, dang, you could just shorted anything like blindly. That was like Ferdinand's whole family was shorting everything. So I really missed out on that. So I should have made a lot more in February. May was my second best month ever, was about 6R, I think, maybe a little bit.
Wow.
A little bit over that. So my R is 400 now. I've moved that up a little. And so it's been going really well. I would love to be where you're at and say, hey, I'm at 10R consistently every single month, but I'm not there yet, but I will be. That's my goal, is a consistent 10R every single month, like no matter what. Because I mean, if you can pretty much do it, why can't I?
I mean, if I can do it,
I mean, I'm not saying that in a bad way. Anyone can do it.
I'm telling you, open. Yeah, if I can do it, anyone can do it. It is not. Yeah, it is definitely. It's so true, man. So true. But hey, dude, congrats. That's really good. I didn't know that you had. I didn't remember you had 6 hours in May, your birthday month. That's fantastic. So,
yeah, the first week was phenomenal, and then there was 2 weeks of just like nothing, slow, like $50 wins, $50 loss, and then the last week was phenomenal.
What does the future hold for your trading? What do you think is next? I mean, like, what's the next step in your mind of getting to where you need to be?
I still think it's being comfortable leveraging my account more. My actual trading account is pretty heavy in cash because I don't do a lot of swing trades. I do a lot more day trading, and then obviously a lot of put sales. And I want to be able to play in all 3 arenas so that I can be successful kind of in those, like last year when the market was really good for swings, and this year it's been really good for day trading. So I can be successful all 3 ways. And I think I could leverage my account better because, it's like, even if I have most of my cash locked up with level 3, option writing, it doesn't take up as much margin. So I still have plenty of buying power to day trade with. So I'd like to be able to get my R up to $500, and then I would like to be more successful in my short-term swings, not like long-term, stuff, but short-term, like bill-paying swing trades, and then just continue my success with the day trading, and then they could put selling has been really good. And I'm dabbling a little bit back with some credit spreads like that iron condor on
U.S. Steel.
On U.S. Steel, I did that one to dabble in a little bit. Because the unravels was something I wasn't that good at. So this way I know I'm only going to have to unravel one. Like one of them is guaranteed to work. So if I have to unravel any of them, it'll only be one.
Exactly.
So I like that. And I just like the sideways action this has been doing. So those are some of my goals from a trading standpoint, is utilizing my capital better. I don't hold margin overnight. And I know that some of the most successful traders and that make, leverage the most money, they hold margin overnight. And I really want to thank Matt too, because in talking to him, like, he stretched my mindset a bit when, he said, well, do you borrow money and pay interest on your house? And I'm like, well, yeah. Well, why do you do that? Well, because over time you assume that your house is going to appreciate in value.
Yeah.
Well, are you buying stocks that you want to go down? It's like, well, no, I want them to go up, but I mean, your house can go down too. So if you can utilize that margin to make more than you're actually paying in the margin interest. And, like you told me, hey, it's like I pay more in commissions than I do more in margin interest.
Sure.
I'm not saying I want to go to 80, 85, 90% of my account, but I don't hold any margin overnight. Right. And I think that I could put my capital to better use by leveraging it more.
That's awesome, man. Great revelation. Good to know that, because like I said, I mean, the good news is, let's circle back. You've been doing it a year, right? So, I mean, imagine, dude, just put yourself 10 years from now. 10 years from now, I mean, you're going to have all the strategies. You're going to have everything planned down. Your R will probably be 3,000 at the minimum. You'll have more money than you're trading now. Your account will be bigger. You'll probably have businesses. You probably will. Who knows? I mean, the sky's the limit. But that's a big breakthrough to know, because the fear of losing is certainly something that can hold traders back. And obviously with margin, I mean, I'm one of those people me. I mean, I'll leverage it out to the gills if I need to. But I'm with the I know my worst case scenario. That's the thing, is I think about it once, I write it down, and that's my worst case scenario. I go, okay, here it is. If I have these trades get stopped out, if it's a stock or if it's a swing trade or a longer term investment, then whatever. Speaking of, do you have any longer term investments?
Yeah, my biggest long-term investment is Apple, obviously. And I do have Celgene. That's like fairly long term. I don't think I'm going to hold it forever. Actually, would have been great if I would have sold it at 140 and just bought back in. But it is what it is. I like their overall long term like drug portfolio that they have. Some of my longer term swing trades like Johnson and Johnson, Procter and Gamble. Procter and Gamble is probably one that I'll hold like pretty much forever. Just because, they make shampoo, toothpaste, toilet paper. I mean, you're never going to not need toilet paper and toothpaste and shampoo. So I think that's pretty much like a long-term staple, and they pay, good dividends. And then, I have a little bit of a longer-term swing on Southwest, but again, they're not like bill-paying trades.
Yeah.
So those are some, but my biggest is definitely Apple long-term.
Do you do covered calls or collars or protected puts, or just kind of
I have not with Apple because I honestly don't really want to get called away.
Right. Gotcha.
So Apple and Procter and Gamble are kind of like I'm willing to hold those for pretty much ever.
Yeah.
So I don't do covered calls on those.
Gotcha. Well, all I can say on Apple, I'll pull Matt along. I'll stretch your mindset a little bit. And by the way, Matt's going to be at the retreat as well. So that's going to be really cool. With stocks like Apple, I mean, you're not going to get a lot of money, with covered calls, but just as a reminder, you can always buy them back.
Yeah. That's true.
So
that's
it's true. So the thing is, for Apple, for me, like to give you an example, so a September 215 pays 47 cents, which is nothing, 47 $47 per 100 contracts. But if the stock goes from 190 to 215, we're talking to $25 additional per share. So I was like, I'll get paid $47 a contract to wait for that to happen. And if it's above there, then I'll just buy it back. But I made more on the equity than I'm going to lose on the purchase of the covered call.
Yeah.
And then I'll just do another one because at some point they have to expire worthless. You're not going to just keep rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling. But if that does happen, that's kind of a good thing, because when you lose money on a covered call, you're losing $100, $200, $300, depending on how many shares you got. But I mean, if you're making more of that than equity, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyway, I say that to say I'm with you on Apple. I do the exact same thing, and I won't get called away. I'll just buy it back if I need to. I usually end up saying, I wouldn't mind selling Apple at 210. I'll just do some put sales, and then if it got up there, I go, I'll buy it back. I keep doing that over and over.
Yeah, so, that's true. That's true. And I don't really look at that account anymore. So I used to keep everything in one account, right? Yeah. Well, now that I have the trading account separate from like my longer term holdings, I don't really even look at them anymore.
Yes. That will be so helpful for so many traders. I don't look at anything long term. If I got my long term stuff, I will log in to do like a covered call or protective put or something, and I'll log right back out.
Yeah.
I won't even touch it, because that's if you sit there and look too long, man, your brain starts saying, I don't know, you sure you don't want to sell?
Yeah, exactly.
You're up 20 grand.
Even on day trades, I mean, you get that feeling sometimes. And like when you did the back trading marathon, and you kind of walked through, I think it was a Tesla trade, and you went candle by candle, and you shared like what, the conversation going on in your head, like with that little voice that says, oh man, you're such an idiot. Oh man, you're awesome. Like every candle by candle, it's like, we all have that. I'm like, dude, that's exactly what, I'm telling myself.
Yeah.
So it's like trying not to look at the trades, which is I've been really stretching myself on, because I'll share, I started streaming my day trading on Twitch TV. So I don't know if this was going to be one of your questions, but that was another one that Jeremy kind of stretched me to say, because I had thought about, man, nobody is streaming. Like people stream trading cryptocurrencies on Twitch and like video games and cooking and all kinds of different stuff. I'm like, no one is streaming like real like trading, like day trading. I've looked, and they aren't doing it. And so you were like, well, what's the worst that can happen? Nobody watches you, or which you're already trading anyway. So I'm like, yeah, sure. What the hell? So I have twitch.tv/Falconium TV is my Twitch channel, so to speak. And so I have enough like people following now that like you can actually like subscribe to my channel and use your like because it's owned by Amazon. Use your Amazon Prime and all that to subscribe to me. So that's kind of neat. But the one thing that I've noticed is since I'm streaming and talking to people about like trades, and it's like I'm right in front of the computer, I'm watching my trades a lot more. Whereas before, like I could just get up and go do whatever, where it's like now I'm there talking to people and it's sitting there on my screen staring at me in the face, doing exactly what you just said. Like, are you sure you want to stay in?
Yeah,
you sure you don't want to, cover right now? That kind of thing. So I'm really I worked a lot on being patient versus like being too, I think you said heady at one time.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to find the balance of when to be patient and then when to, be aggressive and get in and out really quick.
Yep. And that's the part, honestly, that will only come with time. I tell people that very frequently, like the trade on Wells Fargo, that you played. I knew without a shadow of a doubt, I was like, this thing needs to run like the wind. And if it doesn't, you got to cut quick. Because there are certain trades, like you'll just be able to look at that chart and you go, man, these people are wrecked. But like Berkshire Hathaway's, I cannot believe I missed that trade. But it's that same situation. I can look at that trade, and even though obviously I can see what it did, without seeing what it did, I just know how strong of a gap that is, and I know how many people are trapped, how many people are losing money, and how many people are buying right here. So that would have been one very similar where it's like, okay, this needs to work profoundly. And if it doesn't, just take your profit and move on. But if it does start working, just trail. Because those are the gaps, like you'll feel it. You'll feel like this is a gap. This is a trade that I need to hold on to for hours.
Yeah, and the insta profits, especially on retests, like that's where I found that I really that's one of the trades that we trade very similar is those retests.
Yep.
And if it retests and like nails you to the penny or 5 cents and then just starts working instantly, then it's like you got to hold that thing like as long as possible or until your target, try and hold that thing. So that's what I'm, really working on versus like a CIEN today. When it broke down, it didn't really break down. I gave it, I think like 35, almost 40 minutes. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to trail my stop very aggressively on the 1 minute. And like that little Morningstar reversal, I ended up trailing out on. Whereas if I would have tried to say like, oh, I'm going to be super patient, then I probably would have got stopped out for a small loss.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's just the thing that'll just take time. That'll take practice and hours in front of the chart. I mean, I will say a lot of the traders who are here, you're certainly one of them who have spent, you're every webinar that I've ever done for the last year, I think. So, unless you're in jury duty, you're there. But that, man, that hour builds up because the whole 10,000 hours, some people are like, oh yeah, I've done 10,000 hours. I put in 10,000 hours into this particular craft. I'm like, have you though? Because 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year is only 2,000 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like,
full time is 2,080 hours. Yeah.
I was like, that's a lot of hours. So, for someone doing it like a year, even if it's 2 years, I'm like, okay, you're only halfway there, right? Even if you did 40 hours a week, where most people think they do 40 hours a week, but I'm like, nah, you did like 7, maybe 15. So anyway, that's saying all that to say, yeah, you have to put in that time to build that mastery, and you're doing it, man. So I'm proud of your journey.
Yeah, thank you. I'm trying to complete that 10,000 hours as quick as possible. While at the same time, there's definitely something to be said from like walking away every once in a while and doing something different.
Absolutely. So so we got 4 minutes left. Quick questions. Talk to me about other streams of income. What are you trying to do to build other streams of income?
So I still have a rental property in California.
Okay.
That I have. Obviously the Twitch thing, like right now it's like tiny, but if I can get a few $100, a month, or heck, sometimes that could be 1,000 or something like that, or a couple thousand, because there's so much opportunity there. And then obviously some more rental properties. The realtor thing, like I don't think I'm going to be out there doing full time, but I'm getting my real estate license part time. Going to classes, which has been really messing up my schedule because I like to get to bed early and wake up early, and this thing ends at 10 because of all the people with normal jobs. It doesn't start till 6. But if I can make some money for the commissions, that's great. But realistically, what like my ultimate goal with is being, because the best deals like you don't find listed on the MLS, because
No.
a bunch of real estate investors with their licenses find them before you.
Yep.
And so I want to be able to like source really good deals and put together whether it's like syndicates or partnerships to snatch those deals up. Not only would I keep some of the commission, but actually invest my own money and or trade the fact that I found it, put together the package and everything for a portion, of the equity of the deal. So stuff like that. I'm really looking into multifamily. So I'm learning a lot about multifamily and how that works. And I already have some good knowledge, from the bank with that type of stuff. But that's definitely going to be a big one because that's passive. You don't do a whole lot, especially if you pay a manager. I mean, that's pretty much mailbox money. And there's nothing like earning money while you sleep, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, last thing. So you've worked in finance. I'm sure you've dealt with customers in situations like this. And I always like to be cognizant of customers and traders and friends that are in the situation. So let's say that you're, not you, but there's someone that's 55 years old. They want to retire in 10 years, and they have $30,000 in savings. What's your advice or your opinion?
If that's all they have,
Yep, that's it.
that's going to be a little rough. I mean, I definitely think that there's always ways to like leverage expertise to maybe do like some type of consulting on the side, because you're generally like, if you're that age, you've probably been doing one or two things for a longer period, like in your life, right? So maybe you've had the same job for 30 years, or you have like experience in an industry that you can do some consulting to where it's like the dollar per hour is pretty high. So doing something like that on the side, if you can. I definitely prescribe to the notion that that you should hold equities a lot longer into your life, your age, rather than like, oh, well, at 50 you should be in 50% bonds, at 60 you should be at 60% bonds, and that kind of traditional financial advisor advice. I don't particularly subscribe to that because I think interest rates are going to be a lot lower for longer than people think, and that's why like I'm not very bullish on bank stocks, because I've seen the balance sheets and how much just cash they're sitting on that they can't do anything with. So I think that interest rates are going to be a lot lower for longer, and like fixed income and bond yields and things like that it's not going to be enough. So I think you have to have some equity, and you probably have to have some risk out there. And I know we talked a lot about, and we're coming up on the time, but about retirement. What does retirement really mean? I think if you're doing something that you're passionate about, and you can do it part-time, then I think you could consider yourself retired, versus just like, oh, I'm never going to like lift a finger a day in my life again. I mean, who really wants to do that anyways? I mean, what are you going to do all day?
Yeah. Yep. Bingo. Man, great suggestions. Phenomenal interview. Thanks so much for your time, man. I mean, I honestly we could chat another 17 hours, I feel like, because I want to talk more about banks. That's something that if anyone out there is interested in banks, if you have bank stocks, if you're interested in interest rates, bond yield curves, Falco knows his stuff. Reach out to him about it on Slack. Get his opinions, because they are opinions. He's not an actual doctor. But he could be. He could be a doctor.
I was telling James I want to be a doctor of the candlesticks. That's what I want my PhD.
Right. Heck yes, man. I love it. All right, dude. Well, thanks for your time, and I really do look forward to seeing you in September, brother.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Jeremy.
Yeah, man. My pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Robert Falco. That's our time. The only trade that we talked about before that, really in depth before that chat, was Clorox. And Clorox did work very slightly. So if you took that trade, you're up at least a quarter, half an hour. Netflix, just be real careful on the Netflix breakdown. Got the 50 on the daily. It's probably going to go a little bit higher. My prescription, Netflix goes a tad higher from today. Other than that, folks, I'm out. We got Energy Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. We got the stock review coming up as well, and hopefully that one records properly this time. You guys are amazing. I'll see you all later, and until next time, love life, live life, and trade life.